everyone, this is Fyer-Huné at Time to Talk Mental Health Hub podcast. Today we have Martin, the founder of WHYY Studios, who's going to be talking to us about having his own company so young, being a Gen Z, and just living in the climate that we are right now. So it's quite nice to have someone who's as young as me. So it's like, I understand it'd be really good to just flow with this. I am dead excited. So Martin, tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me on. I do appreciate it. So currently just turned 22. It was birthday last Friday, Friday 9th of April.
Happy birthday!
I appreciate that one. Thank you. So just turned 22. Knees are starting to go. No, not yet. But the So tiny bit about myself and the company. So I was studying at university, at Bournemouth University, for about a year and a half, simultaneously while I was running the company. And the company is to put it very simply, it's a multimedia production house where we work quite heavily within the music industry, creating resources for music labels and also stuff like music videos, and we help plan out artist promotions and stuff like that as well. But we also work quite in the corporate side of marketing as well, where we offer social media management, social media development in general, and also a few other branding services, mostly content development based, to sort of help. Our target focus is definitely the businesses, your typical brick and mortar businesses that don't really have an online presence. We sort of try and facilitate that first 3 to 6 month phase of taking these businesses online and developing a online process for them to see if they can see if they can benefit in any way and build up a brand online. It was quite funny because it was a year and a half into my university degree. I was studying economics, and
a bit different.
I was running the company at the same time, but we were getting a lot of traffic coming through. A lot of a lot of projects were being done, and a fair amount of expansion was happening. So it was quite interesting for me to realize quite quickly, hold on a minute, I can't really do both of these at the same time if I want to get more than 3 hours of sleep a night and keep some sort of physical well-being, physical and mental well-being. So it was quite a tough decision, basically, where I either had to sort of stop facilitating and stop developing this little, like almost like a child, if it still feels like a child that I'm helping develop, because it's, I started it and it's something that is 100% mine, it's 100% independent, and there's done, some projects have done some incredible numbers, and I didn't really fancy just letting it all go. But at the same time, as I know and everyone else knows, a higher education is very important. It's a staple of someone. If I were to go into a career, it would be a hell of a lot better for me to walk in the door with a degree than without a degree. So it was quite a big toss up when it came to deciding what I actually wanted to do. So I'm sure something we'll talk about a little bit is these really big key decisions at a very young age that nobody really prepared me for, nobody really taught me about. It's sort of something I really had to figure out on my own. And whether or not I made the right decision, I guess we'll see in the next couple of years, I guess, to see how the business does and everything. But I think it's very important in general to understand how to make big decisions, especially when it will impact your life in a very, very big way, like it has with mine. I guess that's a little rundown of the company and myself, and sort of what led me into developing the company more and making it, I guess, a proper thing. So,
well, I am in awe, to be honest, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do with my, well, she's my best friend, but I'm gonna have to call her business partner.
Yeah, I understand.
But it's so hard, so I went down the route of doing a degree, then doing this, and also having a job, because as you probably had the same, making money straight away is really, really hard, and having something to stand there and keep you upright and stuff. But I'd like to say congratulations for having your own company at bloody 22. That's absolutely incredible. And yeah, the things I wanted to get into is one, like a lot of people are quite ageist. So for you being 22, people will be like, oh my God, 22, you're too young. They're not going to take you seriously. So I'd love to know how you've got over, like how you've got through that, if you have had that as a sort of step. Because I feel like a lot of young people who want to make these big decisions, they're always stopped by their age or by their abilities, and that will knock their mental health, thinking that they're worthless or they're not good enough for it. So how did you get over that barrier of people maybe telling you not to go for it and stuff?
Yeah, it's quite funny you mentioned about the I guess the sort of a strategy that you sort of put into your own head about trying to not share your age with people, because there are some a hell of a lot of misconceptions that come from business leaders or people within high authority job positions, etc. People who have a lot of control in the business that are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they see someone in their, I started it when I was 17, so I was making some fairly decent, or closing on some fairly decent contracts at the age of 18, 19. So it was to be honest, I talk about a strategy. The strategy was I just didn't tell anybody my age. I made sure it just didn't come up in conversation, and which is kind of hard because I think I will still have a baby face by the time I'm in my 30s. So it's a tiny bit more.
That's a really good thing, because it means you won't be wrinkly. When you're 60, you'll still look 40. So
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I think so yeah, first of all, I did just avoid it altogether. Even now, sometimes my initial go-to is to not, if it's directly asked to me, I kind of have to respond. I'm not going to lie about my age. It's a bit silly to do so, but I would originally, and I still sometimes do it. I'm a lot more open nowadays, but because I've learned to, I guess, not really allow it to affect how I approach clients, or I try. And I also, there's so many examples and so many conversations I've had with business leaders where they will not think I'm 22 or 21 or 20 based on how I'm talking about a certain procedure, putting a certain strategy in place, or what I can do for their business, etc. I think what it comes down to is, if you can facilitate and if you can create something, or if you can just in general do a good job, the age shouldn't really, well, I say shouldn't, it most definitely should not matter at all. If an 18-year-old can do the same job at the same level that a 60-year-old can do, it's that 18-year-old should be equally paid and equally reimbursed for certain things and XYZ, and given the same opportunities and viewed the same in social situations as well, given the same voice, given the same platform and everything like that. So originally I did start to most definitely just avoid everything to do with my age in general. But what I've learned over a couple of years is that it actually does play to my advantage a tiny bit, because it's something that a lot of people don't expect, which means that it sort of heightens my presence in the room, in the video call or whatever, because I'm thinking, hold on a minute, this kid, I've agreed with what this guy is saying, and this guy is saying the exact same things on my mid-level position people are saying, and they're in their 30s and they have a degree and stuff like that. So that's happened on occasion a couple of times, where they've just been like, you're not 22, stop. Well, you're not 21, you're not 20, stop. What are you lying about? And I'm like, no, do I need to send my birth certificate? Like, you know what I mean? So yeah, so I think usually I used to avoid it. I I hate saying my age. I just didn't like it at all, because of of how it would then affect. Yeah, exactly. How it would affect future business relationship, because they would automatically see me as someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, or is maybe a bit naive or something like that, even though the work I've been doing has been carried out for a number of years prior to that anyway. So I do I do like to think I have at least a tiny bit of knowledge of what I'm actually doing.
Oh,
So
you definitely do.
yeah, so
And I think that's really, really good advice as well, because it's just telling people. I know, a little stutter then. It's telling people that nothing stops them. The age doesn't stop them, which I think is incredible. Like I think people are going to be listening to this, be like, oh, what? See, this isn't going to stop me. This shouldn't stop me. So the big thing I wanted to ask about as well is how you got through your big decisions, because I know there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of triggers that people will have with this. So how did you find a strategy, as you say, to overcome these like worries, and how did you actually decide? Because those are big decisions.
yeah, so there's a couple very big decisions I've had to make over the last few years in terms of how it would not only affect my professional life, but also how it would affect my personal life, because the professional life would ultimately change how my personal life would would differ. I think a few, obviously number one is a lot of time has to be spent evaluating. I really don't like the idea of jumping into something without a very considerable amount of thought. I think that is just very fundamental. It's a fundamental practice of, hey, you have a big decision to make, sit down for a week and think about it, and think about if it's something you want to pursue. Think of how you will be in the next 3 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months. What you aim to get out of it after a couple of years. By time me sat here at the age of 22, how do I see this certain thing playing out when I'm 25? So I really think putting on a hat, and that hat has a massive label across it saying long term, and you put on the hat and you have a think about the long term, and you only think about the long term, and try to have, try to, I think being very realistic as well is very important. Because I still think I do think quite a fair amount of young people are quite naive in what they think they can achieve within a very considerable short amount of time. They think a lot of young people, I do think, they think they can start up a business or start up a brand and in 3 months be competing with the big people, and it's just, unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. There's a lot of years have to go into actually mastering a very certain niche part of a certain industry. Just taking social media management, for example, something I've been doing for a couple of years, and there's still many a company who will trump me and know a lot more about. But that's something I just got to take on the chin, unfortunately. I think with these big decisions, it's something where it's just to sit down and think about the long terms, think about the short terms, and think about how it's going to affect you personally. Because it's all well and good making a professional decision that's going to make you more money, or going to open up new doors, or going to open up, maybe it will expose you to very high net worth people that would be very good to connect with, and all this sort of stuff. That maybe you could get a mentor out of it. Who knows? However, if the trade-off is you working 85 hours a week, not being able to see a partner, not being able to see family, not being able to see friends, I think a lot of young people fell quite miserably to position themselves in the middle. I think a lot of young people are on either side of the spectrum. One side being they're not doing any work, they're messing about quite a lot, and the other side of the spectrum is doing way too much work and not having any fun whatsoever, and are burning themselves out, building up a plethora of anxiousness, building up a plethora of what could be eventual depression, because they look back on what they haven't had fun with, because they've spent 15 hours in their office every day. And I think the problem in it, especially on the socials, for young people, is like the sort of the grind mentality that's been pushed upon a lot of young people, where it's becoming it has been romanticized for a very long period of time, that you need to work 18 hours a day. You need to sleep. You need to sleep no more than 6 hours a day. You need to put your bum down in your seat and be typing for 10 hours a day. You need to only be staring at your computer screen. You need, it's not. I think one thing that a lot of young people will go through, I think in our generation, will be a massive burnout sometime within their 20s. I personally think probably 3/4 out of every person within our generation. I've gone through a massive burnout a couple of years ago, and it's something where I believe a lot of young people will go through it, and a lot of young people will be stuck in a rut for 12 to 24 months, and they will lose a hell of a lot of progress, and they will. But the one tiny little silver lining that I got out of it, and I would hope a lot of other people would get out of a massive burnout, is that you do learn how to then position yourself in the middle of that spectrum. You learn about the self-care. You learn about, okay, I probably should get more than 4 hours of sleep every night. I probably should eat more than 1 meal a day. I probably should drink minimum 2.5 liters of water and go for a couple runs a week and go to the gym and actually take care of yourself, because it's a common saying, if you can have as much money as you want, but if your body is failing you at the age of 45, it's not gonna be worth too much. So
exactly. So of all the stuff that you just said, then when you obviously, we don't need to go into your burnout because that's personal unless you want to, but how did you come out of the burnout? Like, how did you, what was the things that did help you? I don't know if it's the list that you've just said, or if there was something specific that you think could help other people that helped you get out of your burnout.
Yeah, so the burnout happened while I was at university. It was due to simply, I mean, the reason of it is quite simple. It was just simply being overworked, and overworked for quite a long stretch of time, because there was a period of about 12 months where the business was going very well, and I was doing a lot of development on the actual business side, and I was changing things about, because the business model has changed a couple of times since its creation. So I was going through the process of implementing a whole new side of the business, which took a silly amount of time, because it's at that moment, a couple of years ago, it was only me by myself. I have a couple of people helping me now, but back then it was solely just myself. And then I was playing academy football as well,
Wow,
which is quite cool.
that is cool. This is all
Yeah,
cool.
so yeah, so it was quite a high. Well, I spent a short amount of time Bournemouth. Was it? Yeah, Bournemouth FC's. It was called the Centre of Excellence, I think it was called. It wasn't like the actual youth team. It was like a couple stages below. It wasn't too big,
This all sounds amazing. For someone you're so young, and what I can understand the burnout, but it's just so optimistic for so many
yeah.
young people out there.
Yeah, so it was a combination of, there was obviously there's all the physical strain that came from that, as you can imagine, and then the running the business, and then I was also working part-time as well, just a standard retail job, just a sort of pocket money sort of thing,
I did
and
the
then
same.
yeah, and then the actual university itself, and also trying to maintain relationships and stuff like that as well. So it's for to do all of that and to also take care of myself, it was quite, I found it to be quite a big struggle, and I attempted to balance it for way too long, and because I attempted to balance it for way too long, eventually when you don't have any more mental or physical strength to balance a million things at once, unfortunately all of those million things eventually fall over, unfortunately. So I spent about a solid minimum a whole year in that sort of burnout phase of, I would wake up and be tired. Like, yeah, I could sleep for 8, 9, 10 hours, wake up and still be tired, because
Oh yes.
my mental just wasn't there. Like, mentally, I was just completely fried, fully, utterly just fried. And it would be I would start to like procrastinate, and I would start to put off even the simplest tasks. And it lasted quite a longer time than I wanted it to, basically.
You can't, but the thing is though, when your body is, I'm sorry if you can hear my cat in the background, it's having a right good time. Right. But when that burnout happens, it's normally because your body is got into meltdown and needs time to recover. So that year, even though you want to get out of it, your body was probably going, no, I'm not ready yet. Like, I'll come out once I'm ready. So you probably needed that year, even though you say it's too long. And well, look at you now. It's done you good.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess to throw a bit of a personal touch on it, I physically I became incredibly unhealthy throughout that time frame as well. I put on, I think, do you work in kgs, pounds or stone?
Well, I do kgs. Let's do stone. Yeah, keep it easy for me. I'm trying to do kgs since going to the gym.
We'll keep it British. We will keep it British. So I think my weight. I'm 6'1", and my weight went from about, let's say, 14 and a half, 15 stone, all the way up to close to 21 stone. So
whoa! I didn't need to make that. So I look at your picture and I just can't imagine that. Just can't imagine it.
So it was quite a I was quite a big boy. I was quite a very big boy, which had its own physical with just whole. It wasn't a good time basically. And as soon as I got out of that burnout, which again is the sort of thing that happens gradually, I then gradually started to get back into business ventures, started to scale up again, started to educate myself again about other certain industries, and also started to work incredibly heavily on my physical health. Today, I weighed in last Friday, and I weighed in, I think it was 12 and a half stone. So we lost a considerable amount of weight within about the last year and a half. Yeah.
You don't need to lose any more.
Yeah, I'm skinny now. Like it's
I was gonna say, like, when 12 stone for a boy 6'1" is, you don't need to lose any more weight. You're good. You're good. I feel like a mum now.
My mum moans at me now. She says I need to eat.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah. So but yeah, I think all of these things put together represents a wider problem, I think. And that wider problem is, I think this generation in general really, really doesn't have a suitable support system in place to deal with hardship, whether that's personal hardship or career hardship or mental health hardship, whatever the case, just any sort of hardship. I feel like the resources are lacking considerably, because I personally had no one to turn to when it came to my physical health. I had no one to turn to when it came to making these big decisions, focusing on the business venture versus do I focus on, everything was done individually. I'm happy. Yeah, I'm happy for it now. Obviously, one day I'll be 40 odd years old, and I'll be happy that I was fully individual throughout my earlier years, because it teaches you a lot. But it's very straining as well. It's very straining mentally, and then emotionally as well. It's very straining. And I think as well that because I remember when I spent some time at university, we had there was, I think we had, it was all over the news in 2019. We had I think it was over the course of one academic year, we had 4 students take their own lives. All four females, and obviously all of the information remains confidential when it's published to news sources, etc. But
I lost a friend in university, and I think it was the year 2019 as well. And yeah, it's just shocking. The one thing I wanted to say is we're a generation where we try so hard because we feel like we have to do a million things at once to have a good life. Because either if we don't do anything, like you said, we're seen as lazy, and if we need to be the best at everything. The only thing that I have noticed is people seem to think like I've heard a few people say it, and it's something that I'm like, this should not be. Now my cat's having cats on my cat litter. Sorry, but they say that we're like the wet wipes because we've got a lot of emotions, which I think is actually really beautiful, because I think we've got to talk. And when people say, well, wet wipes, but then there's people committing suicide, it's such a high rate. It just doesn't make sense to me how different generations can say that. So what you're saying right now, I think, is perfect. It's what people need to hear, because I feel like there's a lot of people that say, well, we like, I just hate that word, wet wipes, because we're quite soft now.
So to follow up on that, I think it's within a professional and business perspective for younger people. It's something I've learned as well, and something I've had to take into consideration and actually learn how to deal with, is that I implement it myself, and I also say it to the people I work with as well, is that unfortunately the market and the industry simply doesn't care for your feelings. That is, it's not a nice thing to say, but I think when I was 15, 16, I was like, I'm going to work in the financial industry. I'm going to be, I always wanted to be a manager. I always wanted to be someone of authority, of response. And to do that, unfortunately, you're going to take a lot of stick. You're going to take a lot of people saying certain things. So you have to have a very, very, what's the phrase? You have to be able to take a lot, I think, in terms of, you have to block out everything basically and just sort of stay on a straight and narrow path by yourself. But yeah, I think the main point of that is that from a professional and business standpoint, like I said, people care, but businesses and processes and systems and strategies and all this it doesn't matter for feelings, it doesn't matter for emotions, it doesn't matter that the suicide rate in men is the highest it's ever been. It doesn't matter that the statistics for a lot of the young people when it comes to mental health issues and suicide and stuff like that is completely abysmal. It's fully abysmal, and it does need I think a lot of attention to it. However, from a business standpoint, what being called a wet wipe, actually, and again, it's gonna open up your mind to, I guess, maybe another perspective. But unfortunately, that term doesn't exist, because you are either there to do the job or you're there to not do the job. That's how I see it as well.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think I completely agree with you. It's when I've heard people say in the past, I'm like, you can't really. That doesn't really make, like I said, it doesn't make any sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're either, I completely agree with you 100%. And I think, when you said stuff needs to be put more into the system for young people, I completely agree with that. And I think it's just, I think as well, us young people like yourself, you're so independent that I think trying to help everyone out in different ways, I don't think the system can actually help us all out in one way that they want to help us, because you've got people like you, Martin, who are the most independent person I've spoken to in a long time. And then you've got some other people who are happy just following the crowd. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah, I think it's there's even recently I've looked into for the past, I would say, 6 months, I've been doing a lot of my own research, a lot of my own learning about the age group between the ages of 13 and 19 in regards to that still Gen Z, the younger side of Gen Z, that are in young person's care homes at the minute. No family to depend on, no friends or family to ask for help. So unfortunately, they have no choice but to be independent. And unfortunately, those people have grew up in a system which is something which I realize as well, which frustrates me, is where the public school system doesn't teach independence. The public school system favors non-confrontational behavior, of where they will, it's you will have an argument with the teacher, and it's the teacher is the teacher. He or she is the person of authority. Your opinion isn't valid because you are the student. Full stop. End of story. End of discussion. That's it. That's not. Unfortunately, that doesn't teach a young person to to be
negotiate
independent, to open up, to discuss, to conversate, to anything. What that
yes.
teaches a young person to do is to, unfortunately, probably start to rebel and probably start to up the ante on how they try to get their point across, to the point of they just become antisocial. They just become a tiny bit radical. That's when they cause a bit of trouble. That's when it's into a problem. But it's the idea of confrontation is fully. I'm always going to talk in a sort of professional business standpoint, because I'm involved with the business world. I talk to business owners and CEOs and all this, people of authority, all the time, and they deal with confrontation every day. It's part of the job, and a part of being an adult. Most of the day is you're dealing with some confrontation. There will be something, not obviously not every day, but there will be certain instances where you're, I guess it's sort of like a butterfly effect. How you deal with 100 different situations of confrontation will somehow lead you into a very negative or very positive place. So I think teaching these kids to be to deal with confrontation in a smart, decent manner, with good manners and stuff like that. Because confrontation isn't a bad thing. Surprisingly, it's not a bad thing at all. Confrontation usually, in a business world, confrontation usually leads to a positive end result for either one party or both parties. Because the idea of confrontation in a business setting is to, someone wants something, someone doesn't want to give you something for said price or said time, or so what do? You negotiate. Unfortunately, that negotiation isn't taught within the public school system. Because it goes back to the student and the teacher, or they will have that same discussion, but the teacher will say, no, I'm the person of authority, what you're saying is nonsense, I'm not interested. And there is no negotiation, there is no discussion. Obviously negotiation doesn't happen in schools, but we'll substitute negotiation for a discussion. That a discussion doesn't happen, unfortunately, which goes back to what the learning I've been doing about these young people in care homes, is that they're being forced into a very almost a perilous situation. It's not nice to say, because they don't have anything stable, they don't have anything safe, they don't have anything sort of going for them, really, which is a very bad. It's very sad to talk about. I think it breaks my heart in a way, because these people are not these people is similar to me, so it's I don't know, it's interesting. So what one of the things we're planning on doing at WHYY anyway is I've set up recently a fund that is, it's going to be portions of a certain portion. I haven't figured out a percentage yet, because each project is different amounts, and I'll fill up the fund eventually. But the fund is being put in place where we are essentially raising money, and that raising of money is coming from portions of the revenue we generate over the year. And that is essentially going into a fund where I will then be picking I have a couple in mind already, but I'm gonna be picking a children's home, essentially, for the age range of 13 and 18, because they are between the age of 13 and 18 are very delicate ages.
I'd love to just say something really quickly about that. Back when I was younger, and I mean, well, when I was 13 to between 18, I think I went into counselling. I only tried it a couple of times because we were having family problems at the time, and I had it. But because I was 16, the counsellor almost didn't know what to do with me, because he was so used to having young people and knew how to help the younger people. But because when you're 16, you're nearly an adult, they struggle to talk to you. So there's something just about 13 to 18 that really is such a special, delicate age that really needs to be focused on. Because when my little brother, when he did counselling, and I've had some friends, it's when between the ages of 13, 18, and specifically 16 years old, it's like people don't know how to deal, how to teach. And I just think, when you mentioned that age, I was like, this is perfect. This is what needs to be done with this age range, and you're putting the care in. I just think it's wonderful.
So that so it's a very valid point. especially the 14, 15 to 16 age range, is possibly one of the, I think maybe scientifically it's disproven, or I might be talking nonsense, but I believe anyway, from my own personal experience, and I've talked to quite a lot of people about it as well, is the 14, 15, 16 age ranges where someone's character really develops.
Yes.
So I think how the age of 14, 15, and 16 is being lived by that certain individual will be a very big factor in how that individual will be when he or she is in their 20s and their 30s, etc. So, but yeah, so what we're doing with the fund essentially is, I've identified a big problem with just care homes and these children in care homes in general, is that they don't have respite. They are always on edge because they have no real support system. They have no, obviously the amazing people there who are doing a very high quality job of taking care of them, running the care homes, etc. They are angels, to be honest. They are doing an amazing job. They're filling in for mum, dad, brother, sister. They're filling in for the whole family, to be honest. That they're definitely doing God's work. But I think one thing that I've noticed is that they're still kids, right? And kids deserve a Christmas. So the fund is being put together to allocate a budget to each child within that care home, and that child will, I guess, will give them, say, hey, here's £300. What do you want for Christmas? And we'll do that for every child within the facility. So it's something, I think, because there's a lot of one thing I've noticed is that there is a hell of a lot of research that goes into young people's development. There's a lot of there is a fair amount of action being taken to improve, but a lot of people forget that the kids are kids. Kids deserve these basic holidays, right? So it's something which will help facilitate long-term growth, because I could get a certain 14, 15-year-old could say, oh, there's this fairly expensive art board with a bunch of expensive acrylic paints or something, because they want to work in the art industry when they're older, or something, that they've always been good at art, but they haven't had the proper I guess the resources to do it, or whatever, to facilitate these sort of resources and to provide them to the children, that actually give them a sort of that drive to work towards a passion. Because also at the age of 13, 14, 15, 16 is where individuals do develop passions. They develop, oh, hey, I'm into football, I'm into gaming, I'm into the stock market. That's whatever the case may be. There's a whole wide variety. I'm into trains, I'm into planes, whatever. Sort of identifying and helping facilitate this for their individual personal growth, I think is very, very important. It's something I've been working on for a little while now. So yeah, so
that's incredible. Is there any way, while you're talking about it, I know that it's coming out of any of your out of the projects that you're doing within your business, but is there any way, if anyone did want to, whoever's listening to this podcast wanted to donate, is there anywhere that they can find this, or is it just throughout your business?
I think I think there are. I think because I'm doing it, I think it comes back to the whole independent thing again, of where I the plan has always been to take it from revenue. So I think because it's not a crazy big project, I think I can facilitate it very easily independently and with the business. But the plan in the next sort of between 3 to 5 years is to do this at scale. Instead of providing a Christmas to one children's care home, why can't we provide a Christmas for 10, 20, 30 children's care homes? So that's kind of something that I really want to focus on. At that point, I think then I would sort of need help from people, because at that point it sort of becomes it becomes a very big charitable endeavor, I think, and a very big development endeavor as well. At that point as well, I would start to talk to people of authority within the world of politics and stuff like this, to really get the message across that the young people within these care homes are still, yes, they are in a safe environment and they're being taken care of by professionals, but they still need to be properly humanized, because they're missing out
and adored and stuff like that.
So they're missing out on a lot still, which I don't think a kid really should miss out on, to be honest. So
definitely not. Well, that is just, wow, that's just amazing. And I think if people are listening to this, one thing that they could take from it is maybe do their own little bit of research into what you've researched, just to see it for themselves. And maybe for anyone listening to this, if there's any charities that you want to get in touch with for children's orphanages and care homes and stuff, then start looking, because there is a lot of charities out there. On the top of my head, I wouldn't know any. Do you know any, Martin?
Yeah, so there's a you know what, I need to bring up a list. I made a list.
Don't worry, I did put you on the spot.
I was planning on just rambling today, but I'll bring up a little list I have. Give me a moment. So it's if I do this, I will continue to talk. I'll get there in a minute.
No, it's all right. Take your time.
Overall, I think that the main problem within the landscape of development within these children between the ages of 13 and 18 is that for the kids that are being put through incredibly tough times, whether it's family issues or whatever, or financial struggles, is something which it's really annoying for me, because it's something I look into and it just makes me sad every time I look into it even more and more, because I'm like, I'm only one dude, and I want to sort of change everything, but I can't. It's annoying.
Oh, tell me about it. That's how I live with this charity. Me and Vanessa, we just want to take everyone under our wings, but it's so hard. There's so many people and so many different types of people and different. Oh, yeah. So Martin, I get you. It's crazy.
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. There's a couple. So there are obviously the main children's homes associations. Your Action for Children, also the St. Christopher's as well, for the one in London as well. However, I really want people to look at the independent and smaller children's homes, because these are homes that are receiving next to no additional funding. They will receive basic funding, but when it comes to actually receiving extra, because they are independent, they are low profile compared to these big organizations, it's something which isn't really focused upon at all, which I think, so in the Bournemouth area, there's a couple obviously that I'm scouting at the minute to see which one would be a good fit for us, but whatever your local area is, try to look at the ones within your local area that aren't paired to a big organization. Those are the ones that are probably going to need a lot more help than the ones that are backed by big organizations. So
no, thank you for that. No, that's it's really eye-opening. It makes you feel so lucky. There's me thinking, oh gosh, I can't fit in a tattoo early enough, or I haven't got enough money for a tattoo. And then there's children that have got nothing really. They've just got the bare food that they're given and the clothes on the back and stuff. So it really puts things into perspective and makes us realize how lucky that we are. But it also makes us realize that we can help other people, even in the smallest ways. So Thank you so much for that. So just to wrap us up, because I don't want to take too much of your time, and it's pretty late as well, and I know you've had a really long day, and well, with your business and everything, it sounds like every day is crazy for you. But what would you say your two, we'll say two, I don't know why I'm going for that number, but what would be your two main tips for Gen Zs, and for people as young as me and you, just to get through life and get through the dreams?
Yeah, I
It's a big
think it's
question.
yeah. So
I can
two
give you more
things.
than two if you want. I realized I was a really, really like that's so broad. It's like when people go, "What's your favorite film?" and you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, so I think firstly, it's something that I've learned is that um, understanding a long-term passion is very cool. That's all well and good. Everyone has a certain passion, a certain thing that they want to focus on. However, write that down and write like a 1 to 5 year roadmap of how you want to actually get there and what you want to achieve in the years in between. So if you have a 5 year plan and you want to get this way or this part done by year one, this part done by year two, that you need reverse engineer everything, because you don't reverse engineer, if you don't reverse engineer at all, unfortunately you're going to be stuck in a in big picture world. A big picture world is very fancy, it's very glamorous, it's very, oh yes, I'm going to I will be the CEO of this massive company, I will work this very, but you're just saying it, you're not actually doing anything. So again, it comes back to what I was saying before about it's all, there are a lot of personal issues, and there are a lot of uh, just other issues emotionally, alongside mental health and everything, that a lot of young people suffer with, and it shows by the statistics anyway. However, when you are doing something based on a career, based on a business venture, based on a project, unfortunately, the outcome of that project really doesn't care for your feelings. Unfortunately, it's either you put in the hours and you get the project done, you get each step of the way done, or you don't, and you don't see the end of the project. So I think watching yourself and sort of indirectly understanding when you are feeling a bit burnt out, when you are feeling a bit down, when you are feeling a bit, and to just take the foot off the gas a tiny bit. That doesn't mean stop everything, because I think stopping everything is possibly the worst thing to do, because it will take you a hell of a lot of effort to start back up again.
Exactly.
So
No, yeah, preach that.
I think taking the foot off the gas a little bit is going to be important. What I've seen with a lot of the university students now, because a lot of people are finishing their dissertations, a lot of people are handing in final assignments and sitting final exams and stuff like that, of where they're not going to do anything for the next 3-4 months. Then they're going to do nothing, because they've spent the 3 or 4 months of future energy now, the last couple months, cramming everything in, and so they're just going to be doing nothing for. Obviously, some of them will do something, obviously, but I have a feeling a fair majority will take this time to just recharge, which is fine. Recharging is very important. However, putting plans together while you recharge, and sort of and coming out of that state of recharge and understanding exactly what you need to do and exactly the dates you want to hit these goals on, and what goals there are in general to hit in the first place. That's something that doesn't take a considerable amount of effort, and because you are in that state of recharge, you can take your time with it, which is something I mean I advise quite a lot of university students to do, because obviously a lot of university students now, obviously they're finishing everything and now they're jumping into the real world, and now they're jumping into the world that unfortunately doesn't care about them the same way that maybe their university lecturers cared about them, because unfortunately
It's harsher.
yeah, unfortunately a lot of professional and business culture is results driven, and if the results are hindered by any outlying mental health issues or outlying problems in general you might be having at home or relationship, unfortunately 9 times out of 10 the organization that is employed you or has hired you or took you on contract, whatever, it's probably not going to care. They just want the result. So understanding that and preparing yourself for that and getting yourself used to sticking up for yourself in those situations to say, hold on a minute, this is not good business practice in general, because you've hired someone, I've been working for you for a little bit now, not once have you took any notice of my well-being, and I assume you do the same with this. Comes back to the whole thing of confrontation that unfortunately a lot of kids don't get taught how to do properly. They will just sink, their shoulders will sink into themselves and they will just be like, yes, okay, fine. Yeah. They'll just agree. And unfortunately, agreeing with everything usually gets you into a lot more problems than if you were to say no.
Again as well. It's just like a circle. It's just a period that it's just they never get out. It's like a hamster wheel.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, taking time out when you feel like you need to take time out is important to avoid burnout. However, it's almost like with what athletes do. They will have active rest. They have short periods of time where they are dedicated resting for a couple of weeks or whatever, where they are made to do nothing so their body can repair. But the majority of their time is spent actively resting. So actively resting doesn't mean sat on the sofa. Actively resting means they still go on the treadmill, but it's just not at a very intense level. They'll still go out. They'll still go out and practice their sport, just very casually. So they are still resting because they're not performing. It's the same thing with academics, the same thing with business people, whatever the case may be, is that you can still do all these things. Just do it at 20, 30% if you feel like you need a rest. You don't need to, unfortunately, it would be nice if you could go throughout the entirety of your life at 100%, but I feel like that's one way to an early grave, unfortunately. So I think understanding when to take the gas off a little bit, but to do it actively, to work at 50% output is a lot better than not working at is a lot better than working at 0% output and not being able to get it up at all. So
exactly.
Yeah, so a couple points that I've mostly anecdotal that I've took on board, I think.
They're incredible. Honestly, I couldn't have asked for any more. Well, I could ask for more. I can ask a lot more. I could talk forever. Yeah. But Martin, I'm just so grateful for everything that you've brought to us. Like it's been different because I've never had someone the same age as me. Or literally, I'm trying to do my own production company and how you have so much care for children so young, and like it's just who are not as who are vulnerable and stuff. It's just so it's really nice. It feels really familiar, and I'm just really grateful that you've come on today. And hopefully, because you're going to be a partner again. My cat's having a bit of fun in the background. It'd be brilliant to have like you at our events when COVID allows these. And just thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, of course. I think it's something I've always been good at public speaking. I love people just looking at me. I don't know. I think I'm weird. I don't know.
You haven't had your camera on, so I've been looking at your name literally.
But it's nearly 10 o'clock. I'm not looking the best. I haven't got my makeup on yet.
Don't worry. I've just taken off my dress and going. I was like, hey, wait, will I get away with this top? Yeah, I will.
I think it's definitely something that intrigued me about coming and speaking about it to a room full of people, and to actually getting the point across online on a podcast is one thing, but I think it's really important for a lot of people who are working in this space to actually take it to the real world. Because
that's what I can't wait for, because I'm all about that. Like and to meet people, just you take a lot from hand gestures and your facial expressions and your energy in the room. So I can't wait to hear you public speak. I'll be on that front row. Don't you worry.
Yeah, it'll be cool. Yeah, I look forward to it.
But thank you so much. Well, hopefully we definitely are going to keep in touch. But thank you very much and have a lovely evening.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Martin. Bye.
See you later.